You're listening to the Wayward Atheist Podcast. Hello, everyone. If this is your first time listening, thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where borders collide, where the gloves are off, where filters are removed, where we tell you exactly what we think about the news, politics, and religion. The Wayward Atheist Podcast is dedicated to free thought, reason, and the pursuit of truth. You can follow us on Twitter at Wayward Atheist, on Spreaker, Stitcher, and iTunes. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com. or leave us a comment on our Facebook page. So without further ado, let's get on with the show.
This week's episode of The Wayward Atheist has been brought to you by the crafty freethinker, atheist, humanist, and secular jewelry for those who don't like the idea of wearing a torture device around their neck. Find the crafty freethinker on Etsy and Amazon. Links are in the show notes, or simply Google the crafty freethinker as one word. Hello and welcome. This is The Wayward Atheist. I'm Dave, a.k.a. The Great White North.
I'm Corinne, the Yank.
I'm Big Black Gay Dave.
And I'm Ed, the Everyday Atheist.
Yeah, we'll just jump right into the audio. I don't really have anything important to say.
Oh, just because he doesn't have anything important, he's like, fuck the rest of the guys.
Does anybody have anything for the beginning?
No, that's not the point.
Fucking shut up.
Actually, no, I do have something. I'm going to Reason Rally this fucking weekend.
Yeah, talk about that.
I'm driving up to Georgia Thursday night, and then we're driving overnight up to D.C., Bobby, Ashley, and I. And I have no idea. It's going to be crazy, insane, so many people, and not the type of thing that I'm used to.
Did you hear the bad news about Banana Man?
That he only has like 10 people.
Yeah, because they wouldn't give him a permit because he was gonna have 1,000 or whatever, and then they're like, "Fuck you, that's a protest. We'll arrest you if you harass the atheists."
That is
too bad.
I definitely did hear about that, but he was still saying, "Oh, but Christians should come out." Okay.
Yeah, fuck. I would like him to come up to me.
I would love to just slap him. I'm bringing a
exactly
with me, and I'm gonna slap him across the face with the dildo.
You ever see that bullshit that he does with people's kids, how he tricks them into calling themselves liars?
Yeah, I mean, he does that just on purpose so that he can utilize that to his favor.
If he did that to my child, I'd slap his stupid face.
Yeah, that's some bullshit. He's a piece of shit of a person.
But seek him out and destroy him.
Yes, I accept the mission.
Punch him in the balls.
Get some great footage. I'd like to see it.
All right. I'm hoping the baby Jesus butt plug gets here in time, but
Oh, that would be sweet. You and Ashley should dress up like Jesus and Mary, or like God and Jesus, and make out in front of them.
Not a bad idea. Oh gosh, I just got the worst picture in my head. So moving on.
Okay, so I guess we'll jump into the first story tonight, and that is going to be Donald Trump backing out of the debate with Bernie Sanders.
Were you serious when you said that you wanted to debate Bernie Sanders?
Oh, I'd love to debate Bernie.
But would you
He's
actually take the steps to...
Well, I said last night on Jimmy's show, it was a question that was posed. I said I'd love to debate him, but I want a lot of money to be put up for charity. So what we'll do is, if we can raise for maybe women's health issues or something, if we can raise $10 or $15 million for charity, which would be a very appropriate amount. I understand the television business very well. I think it would get very high ratings. It should be in a big arena somewhere, and we could have a lot of fun with it. I'd love to debate Bernie, actually. I mean, the problem with debating Bernie, he's going to lose. Because, honestly, his system is rigged, just like our system's rigged. Look, if I didn't win by massive majorities, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you today. I mean, I knocked out every opponent. When you have to knock out. And Bernie, unfortunately, hasn't been able to knock out. But the superdelegates for the Democrats, it's so unfair. So the biggest problem I have is that Bernie's not going to win. But I debate him anyway if they wanted to put up money for charity. So we'll see. We've actually had a couple of calls from the networks already, and we'll see.
Jeff Weaver said his team has been having conversations with your team.
It's true. I'd love to debate Bernie. But they have to pay a lot of money for it. Because, look, I'm in first place. I've won, I'd say something over $10 million.
If you raise $10 $10 million, you'll get on a debate stage with Bernie Sanders.
I would love to. Yeah, I would love to.
What's the likelihood?
I've loved debating.
Liar.
Yeah, he's full of shit.
They put the money together, did they not?
They had the money. He said after he wouldn't debate him anyway because it's not in his best interest to debate a loser, basically.
I mean, it kind of makes sense for him not to, but once you say that you will and you put a number figure on it and they produce that number figure, you can't really fucking back out of it.
Well, I mean, here's his official statement. Based on the fact that the Democratic nominating process is totally rigged and crooked, Hillary Clinton and Deborah Wiseman Schultz will not allow Bernie Sanders to win, and now that I am the presumptive Republican nominee, it seems inappropriate that I would debate the second-place finisher. Likewise, the networks want to make a killing on these events and are not proving to be too generous in the to charitable causes. In this case, women's health issues. Therefore, as much as I want to debate Bernie Sanders, and it would be an easy payday, I will wait to debate the first-place finisher in the Democratic Party, probably crooked Hillary Clinton or whoever it may be.
I kind of want to know what women's health issues he's talking about because he was wanting women to be punished for having an abortion not that long ago.
Well,
so what exactly is the health issues that he's talking about?
When I think of women's health issues, I think of abortion. I mean,
that's exactly what
so,
that means.
I'm not sure.
Well, let's ask the woman. Let's ask the woman instead of us. Corinne, when you think of women's health issues, what do you think of first?
Abortion.
Okay.
And cancer.
And cancer. Cervical cancer, right?
Yes, cervical cancer is definitely one of them.
And breast.
Like cancer screenings. Like I think of Planned Parenthood and, places that really are doing it, mostly for women's health. But, abortion is a big part of it. And the most controversial part of it.
And also contraception in general, not just abortion, but like access to. I mean, there's so much in this speech that I'm sure the religious right is just cringing. Women's health issues. What the fuck about women's health issues, right? They
hate small government unless it's our privates.
But I think that what he's trying to do here is to appeal to the women voters that he already marginalized in the beginning.
Well, it's going to be a whole new ballgame with him because he say that for the general, he's not self-funding. I mean, even though he was only like 55 or 60% self-funding.
Well, I mean,
didn't he say he's not going to be self-funding the general?
Yeah, because he can't. I mean, he'd have to put in like $5 billion of his own money. No, he's not that stupid. Yeah,
we covered that on the last show. The one thing that I wanted to say, though, is like Hillary promised Bernie a debate in California. Now she's backed out of it, and Trump won't debate him. It's like, just debate the guy. If you're so sure that you can beat him in a debate, just debate him then. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Think he'll have to debate Bernie if he wins California? You think it's a reasonable move? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he will, though. I think I would like to think that there's going to be a turnaround from the superdelegates in the end because Bernie beats Trump in the general by a larger margin than Hillary, so there's less risk of Trump winning if you have Bernie running against him. So personally, like, not even as an American, just as a human being, I think Bernie's a more caring leader than Hillary is. So I would like to see him get the nod from the delegates, but who knows if that's going to happen or not. I would really like to see like a social democrat debate, kind of like your hardcore money grubbing right wing guy. I would be interesting to see. I haven't really seen a real good debate like that from people that are have stature. I've seen debates between university students, one being left-wing, one being right-wing. And I've seen tons of debate about God, but I haven't really seen a good debate about economics or, healthcare, stuff like that between two people of stature. Even though Donald Trump's a fucking moron and doesn't really know what the fuck he's talking about, it would still be, he's the nominee.
Get rid of Obamacare and replace it with something great.
Great. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Replace it.
Well, what is it going to be?
A fucking wall.
I'm gonna hire the best people, and we're gonna do the best. It's gonna be great.
I loved how he said that Bernie Sanders was going to be a dream to debate. I more think that's going to be a nightmare.
Yes.
These guys are both. They're both populist candidates. They're both somewhat anti-establishment. their base both like them for being sort of on the fringe. I think that Bernie Sanders is going to wipe the floor with Trump in a debate, and I think Trump realizes that once Bernie wins, or if Bernie wins California, or he doesn't win, or whatever, he knows that Sanders has a lot on him, and that he'll wipe the floor with him, I think.
But, I mean, if I was a Democrat that was backing Hillary right now, and I saw the margin of her going down and down closer to Trump, and so they're like only 3 points apart, I would be very scared, because the baggage that comes with Hillary, you don't know what's going to happen in a general election. It's a safer bet to go with someone that's beating him by 13 to 18 points in generalized polls. The baggage that Hillary brings is going to put the Democrats in jeopardy of losing the White House. That's my personal opinion.
Rightly or wrongly, there's a real perception of Hillary Clinton right now in the general public, and especially in the people that only catch like little news clips or hear, people talk badly about her. So, like, obviously she's probably not as bad as the way that the right-wing media and even, Bernie Sanders' favored media is making her out to be. It doesn't really matter, because they're only going to hear those few things, because they're not trying to educate themselves on it. So I agree with Edward. I could see it, really fucking them over in the end if they go with Hillary.
Yeah, I agree with that, because she's just not a really likable candidate, and it's, you're going to have the people that just don't want an establishment candidate that will vote for Trump on that basis alone.
And you will see a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters heading to Trump instead of voting for Hillary Clinton. Because
that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
That would be an absolutely idiotic thing to do, because have you looked at the Supreme Court nominees? I mean...
But the same is not voting, though, David, because like a massive portion of them, they're saying that they're just not going to vote. Saying that you're not going to vote if Bernie doesn't get in is exactly like putting a vote down for Donald Trump. There's no difference.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Bernie or bust people.
Yeah.
So, all I can say is I'm glad I'm a Canadian.
Yeah,
it doesn't really add to the conversation, but like, just
you fucking bragging motherfucker.
Like, just the possibility of like who he will nominate in the Supreme Court could have a lifetime of repercussions. So, sorry, Bernie or bust people, you're gonna have to suck it up. I know you hate Hillary, but the possibility of some weirdo being in the Supreme Court and keeping
it does make a little bit of difference who's in charge of the country in Canada, though. The president of the United States, it's not like Canada's inside its own little bubble and there's no effect from who's running the country.
Oh yeah, in terms of the United States effect on us, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Economy, relations. Like I remember before George Bush Jr. was president, Canada and U.S. were besties, and halfway through that tenure, things went really south. We weren't trading. We were still trading more than anybody else, but not with friendship anymore. It was really cold during those times. And then Obama came in and, kind of lightened things up. And with Harper, it was still not where it should be. But I don't know. I think Justin and Obama made some headway there. But I think if Trump's in, I don't see it being I don't see us doing the same type of trade we would be without him.
Nobody's going to do the same trade.
Exactly.
It's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And, when there's petitions to have him banned from your country, and if he's the leader of our country, I mean, that's just setting a bad tone already. I just can't believe he's legitimately fucking running for president. Because, when I expressed concern about it earlier on in the race, people were like, yeah, but it's going to fade. He's not actually going to get the nomination. But now he has the nomination, and this is real. And this fucking clown is coming in here, and it could change the entire course of the United States. Now, granted, he doesn't have that much power, but, basically you're having a trained monkey in the Oval Office. God, it just makes me sick.
Any NATO country should be worried about him being president. Any NATO country.
The big problem for me is just he's so difficult to predict. He lacks so many underlying principles and philosophies of how he's going to govern. Like, you don't really know what he's about. The very nature of Trump is something that's unpredictable. You don't know what his guiding philosophy is, and it's just so scary. Yeah. It's like, he says one thing during the campaign, he's going to be unpredictable. That's his foreign policy, is just keep people guessing. I'm sorry for the allies, NATO allies are going to be, well, what the fuck does that mean? Does that mean you're going to just do things unilaterally and not consult? Like, we need some stability. We need an underlying philosophy. We need to know who this guy is.
But I have two fears for the United States out of this election. One, under a Donald Trump presidency, you're going to see it outsourced. All its work, you're going to see more poverty on a higher level than you've ever seen it before. I think that the culture itself will die off a slow death. In the grand scheme, education is not going to be a primary motive. You're going to see people being channeled down to careers that will be something that would be very detrimental for the economy itself, because it'll be lower paying jobs, because university will be highly competitive in price point. But under a Hillary campaign, her foreign policy scares the hell out of me. Her foreign policy seems like she wants to start another war with somebody.
Yeah, Hillary's a hawk for sure. I've said this many times on the show. Do you kind of feel like maybe independent voters and kind of further left Democrat voters would be more apt to vote for Hillary if it wasn't like the Democratic Party was shoving it? Like, because to me, what it looks like is they're just shoving Hillary, like it's like forcing Hillary in. You know what I mean? Like, instead of it being an organic thing where people want Hillary to be, they're like, any fucking by hook or crook, we're putting Hillary as president. You know? I
was wondering that. I think a large part of it could be just loyalty. Like, Bernie Sanders into the Senate is an independent. Hillary Clinton served as a Democrat, a part of the party. I'm wondering if a lot of this is just loyalty. You know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Yeah, because do you get the feeling that they're kind of forcing Hillary on the voters?
Well, yes. I think that it seems like David was saying, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I think the biggest reason why there's a wave behind Bernie Sanders in this election is because people see the baggage behind the candidates that are there. And there is something refreshing, something that is needed in the United States. And I always quote this when I talk about Bernie Sanders on Facebook or Twitter, is he's not the president you deserve, he's the president that you need to get you back into shape. If you're the middle class and lower class people in the United States, you need a president like Bernie Sanders. You don't need a president like Trump, and you definitely don't need a Hillary Clinton.
One last thing I want to say is, I hear what you're saying, Ed. I think it's really, really important to think about the big picture too, which is composition of Congress. I think I've said this on the podcast many times. Mm-hmm. Bernie can only do so much. Hillary can only do so much. If there's going to be a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United, that's got to be done in Congress. Bernie is not going to be able to just unilaterally do that. Any kind of legislation, banking regulations, that needs to go through Congress. No president can just dictate it, right? So
I agree with you, David. But I think if with a Bernie Sanders presidency, you're going to see a tidal wave coming from that momentum. You're going to see, come November, a sweeping landslide of candidates that are under the same banner as Bernie. I think that you're going to see a real change-up in Congress and the Senate. I think Bernie Sanders, if he announced now that Elizabeth Warren would be his vice president, he'd beat Hillary hands down. No chance that Hillary would win. I don't know why he hasn't tried.
Yeah, we've heard that before though, like this sweeping change thing. The voters, they don't come out for the Congress. That's the issue in the U.S. They come out for the general election. They don't come out. Like when Obama was in, they said this exact, what you just said was said in 2008, and it didn't happen. It's because the voters don't come out for the congressional vote.
Yeah, but
I think it did kind of happen in 2008. 2012 was when I think it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Democrats had the majority. I'm not sure if they won the majority. I don't know, but they had the majority after the 2008 election in the Senate, and they lost it, I believe, in 2012.
right. But I mean,
But they got like half the voters in 2012. They got like half the voters that they had for the general election showed up for that.
I think there's going to be a big turnout for those.
People in the U.S. don't take these votes seriously, and there's also people in the U.S. who just don't vote on principle and don't realize that, we're not just talking about the presidential election, talking about the congressional ones that David was saying. I mean, some of those smaller, the other elections are so much more important.
I think the biggest issue here, though, is that you see the difference between 2008 and 2012 and 2016 is that Bernie has really energized a population that didn't vote or would not have voted for anybody else. I think that kind of momentum is inspiring to people, and it will build. I think that's the biggest change, is that he's inspiring more people to get out and vote for change. There is something to vote for.
But it may not make a difference because the DNC may just,
and
say,
I think,
fuck you.
Well, I think that then the Democratic Party is going to be in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a mistake, too.
Now that Americans, really concede that there are other options out there besides just the two parties, it's going to be hopefully, spurring a change in the election and have maybe four prominent parties in the next cycle.
Well, one of the things that people don't realize that is what we've been watching, the caucuses and the primaries, those are people being voted to go to the delegation to vote on the behalf of the people. Once those delegates have been chosen from each state, they could go to the delegation and say, I'm not voting for who you wanted me to. I can vote for whoever I want. That is the scary thought. In Pennsylvania, I think it's Pennsylvania. I might be someone out there could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Pennsylvania, once the primary is over, which it is, he or she is able to vote of their own free will, their own cognition.
Do you keep your doubts about religion to yourself? Do you have questions about God that you never ask? We have a better way. American Atheists offers a diverse community for people exploring reality religion-free. American Atheists is leading the charge for equality and the separation of religion and government. Join the most vibrant atheist community in the country. Your voice matters because equality matters.
Welcome to your Big Gay World for May 30th, 2016. This week, the University of North Carolina system will not comply with HB 2, and the Conservative Party of Canada no longer opposes marriage equality, 11 years overdue. Our first story is from Think Progress. Keeping in mind that after North Carolina's HB 2 became law, University of North Carolina President Margaret Spellings announced that they would initially comply with the law concerning citizens using only the bathrooms matching biological sex. This past week, the UNC system reversed its position. The UNC system already has built-in provisions in its non-discrimination policy for gender identity. Furthermore, officials at UNC indicated that HB 2 offered no means for the laws to actually be enforced, so the status quo remains. Spellings, according to legal filings on behalf of the UNC, indicated the system would not lift a finger to enforce the law, and moreover, if there are actual complaints of discrimination, the UNC system would use its resources to investigate the complaint. According to Spellings, there have not been any complaints of this kind since HB 2 was enacted. According to Think Progress, multiple suits have been filed challenging HB 2, including one filed by two transgender men represented by the ACLU and Lambda Legal, who both work or study in the UNC system. The Department of Justice has also sued North Carolina over HB 2, arguing that its bathroom restrictions violate federal non-discrimination protections in employment, Title VII, and education. Title IX. Meanwhile, North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory announced that enforcement of the bathroom laws will be done via trespassing laws. Turning now to my home and native land, where the Conservative Party of Canada, in its policy meetings, decided to remove one man, one woman only marriage language from its party platform. Delegates from across the country participated in the vote, which now gives the party a neutral stance on the issue, leaving individual members to express personal views on marriage. While most of the party opted to strike down the language, there was still resentment from some social conservatives who saw this as an attack on their values. Other social conservatives welcomed the change and embraced the opportunity to not have to deal with the issue anymore. After all, same-sex marriage was legalized in 2005. It's done in ancient history. Hot off the press this week, remember a few weeks ago we spoke of the transgender student Gavin Grimm who won his anti-discrimination lawsuit in lower federal court? Well, this week, the appellate court declined to review the case, which means another win for Mr. Grimm, according to David Badash at thenewcivilrightsmovement.com. Today's refusal to rehear the case means the school system's only course of action to continue the case is to head to the U.S. Supreme Court. Given that there are only 8 members on the court currently, a win for transgender rights would come either by the court refusing to hear the case or by deciding in favor of equality, either of which is more likely given the court's current composition. And let's end on a high note this week. June is Pride Month, which was ushered in by a raising of rainbow flags across North America and included a proclamation by President Obama. And that's your Big Gay World for this week. Okay, so guys, our next story comes from the dailybeast.com, which is basically asking the question, why are so many Muslim refugees in Europe suddenly finding Jesus? This is one by Nadette Devise. So from Amsterdam, hundreds of Pakistani and Afghans have been lining up at local swimming pools in Hamburg to be baptized as Christians. So basically the article describes potentially that all the Trump anti-Muslim talk has gotten some people scared, and refugees feel that it might be easier for them to convert from Islam to Christianity. A German pastor in Berlin has called the conversion phenomenon a gift from God. In his modest community, a staggering 1,200 Muslims, mainly Afghans and Iranians, converted in just 3 years. However, not all church communities are equally excited about the new development. Some leaders question the integrity of the new stream of conversions, which may be done under subtle or not so subtle pressure.
So I would kind of disagree with that guy a little bit on the integrity thing. I think if you're a poor person, a poor brown person, and you were living in a fucked up Muslim country and you saw how shitty that was, and then all of a sudden you're in Europe and like some of these countries are majority Christian and they have everything and you have nothing and you're trying to fit in, I think it's kind of makes sense that they would be converting to Christianity, or in maybe some of the Norwegian countries, becoming atheists. Scandinavian. Yeah. I think it would make sense that they would kind of go with what the populace is, just on the fact of, you know, come from a terrible place. These people seem to have everything. You have nothing. So I think it would, if it doesn't shake your faith, it fucking should.
I think another thing that is mixed into the mix, Dave, is the fact that a lot of these people already realize beforehand that if I want to get into this place, they're already afraid that I might be might be ISIS or might be something else. They're afraid of Muslims. The easiest way to relieve that fear is to convert to Christianity.
They're not all ISIS? Fuck, I thought they were all ISIS. God damn it.
But you know what I mean? I mean, you see the rhetoric you see on TV from Trump.
Muslims are allowed to lie and renounce their faith if it's in the course of infiltrating infidels.
Yeah, like, it's kind of like that. So I think the lie is to so they can lie to make their faith appear better to infidels. Is what it is.
So and I think one of the things that I think is really sketchy about this whole thing is the predatory nature of Christianity to try this in the first place.
Yeah.
Islam would do it too.
Oh,
it's religion in general, and as a matter of fact, and I know, fuck you if you're one of those people that are going to write in and say 300 years ago Christians did it too. Talking about now, they would kill them instead, right? It would be like if a bunch of Christians went to an Islamic country and they didn't turn immediately, do it or you'll die.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, but who wants to move to those countries? It's just simple.
Nobody, but I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, it's just so hard to imagine an argument because who would flee to a war-torn country. But maybe I guess if it was peaceful, you can make an argument like that.
It could be Saudi Arabia or whatever. And if you had an influx of all these Christians, 1 million Christians crossing into, they wouldn't even let them in the first place.
We just live in such a different world. It's so hard to imagine that scenario.
David, they didn't even let Muslims into Saudi Arabia. The mass exodus of Muslims that were leaving Syria couldn't even get in.
Yeah.
The wrong type of Muslim.
Yeah, they're not the exact right Arab.
Wow.
So, I mean, like the Saudi Arabia, to make themselves look good, built all these, refugee camps with air conditioning, and then they just didn't put anybody in them. They refused them all. And so the Syrians, they all went to Europe. And instead of giving money to the governments over there, they offered to build mosques because they just want Islam to spread.
My main concern with this story is the ethics about it, right? It's just taking advantage of a very vulnerable people. It's just like you see that with the missionaries too, going to really, really poor, desperate countries, providing aid, help, money in exchange for conversion. It's along the same thing, right? These people are not in a position to really think about these grand big.
Do you really have a problem with that?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's just like, it's the same argument, about converting children. Children
are you sure that's what's going on though?
From what I see in the article, I think it is. They're not, of course, they're in a desperate situation. They're changing their life radically. They have kids. Why would you convert what you've known, convert from a lifestyle that you've grown up with, that you've trained your kids in, to a different religion? You believe in a true religion, right? Why would you do that? I think it's under duress. I think it's pressure. I think that a lot of Christians in these countries are taking advantage of the situation that these vulnerable people are in, and are looking to get more people on their roster, in their churches. And
again, I have to reiterate, I think that these people are being targeted by Christianity, like you're saying, Dave. But I also think that this is a mechanism for them to feel like, I'll prove to these people that we're not bad Muslims. We need help. Help us. And we're going to do whatever you want us to do, whatever it needs to be done. We'll get there so that we can be out of this horrible situation that we're living in, and that we can fully integrate into society. I think it's a catch-22. If the Christians weren't there, trying to baptize these people, then people would see them as sketchy because they're Muslims and they're coming into this, and are they going to be suicide bombers? And if they are being converted, we're wondering what the motives for the Christians are for doing it. I mean, it's a catch-22.
I think that not every person converted for the same reason. I mean, a lot of those people may have lost their faith already because of, you could see on, some of the frontline documentaries, like the state some of them are living in. And, maybe they just have no faith. So it's easier to take Christianity so that, because the Christians have so much power in these countries. So it's easy to take that on because you've lost your faith already.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
That might be the case for some people.
Probably.
I don't think we can lump everybody in for the same reasoning. They're not all license agents. They're not all, actually converted. They're, it's a wide spectrum of people that came through there.
Speaking on that, Corinne, I think part of this story, which there was no mention of, was where are the secularists and atheists? We have these Christians coming up and getting in the front of the line to convert and speak to these refugees and have access to them. Where are the people that are saying, well, maybe atheism is a better epistemology and a better alternative in life view than converting from one faulty system of knowing to another faulty system of knowing. I don't know what kind of access atheists and secularists have in these European countries. I know the European countries have a lot of non-religious people. Why aren't we saying, forget those people? I think the better life is a one without God, where we have a better way of living, we have a better way of knowing.
The concept of atheism may have never even reached their ears. At this point, they may be trying to learn a new language, learn new customs. Some of them may want to assimilate into the culture. And so I think they need to, learn the language to get by and kind of find their identity again. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be an automatic switch to atheism. I mean, they might say, well, our God failed us. Let's try this God. And then realize, down the line, okay, they're all fake. But, it might just be one of those stepping stones.
What I meant too is not just atheism, but the whole support structure that a normal, like when Christians convert people, when Christians provide immigration services, it's not just about the religion, it's about the language, it's about finding jobs. Why aren't we setting up those same?
Yeah, but you don't know that that's what those Christians are doing. You just know that they're converting to Christianity, right?
What they're doing what?
Like you just said, setting up jobs. Like I know that you're saying that seculars should be doing this, but you don't know that those Christians are actually
I
doing
don't know,
that, right?
but we know because of how big these structures are, they're likely. I mean, Christian charities are known for doing these things. They're known for providing these structures and at the same time espousing their own beliefs and convincing people. They have access. They're using those structures to access these immigrants and promote their religion.
And at the same time as that, David, you don't know that there aren't secular groups doing that over there that just aren't getting the same.
I'd like to see the
publicity.
story. I'd like to see the story mention that, and this story did not mention that.
Maybe that's something that
tough.
we should look into.
I agree.
Yeah, but I know if I was poor, starving, in a foreign country, didn't know anybody, and the Christians came and said, convert to our religion, I'd be like, fuck yeah, sure, why not? I don't really believe it. Just give me some damn food.
I don't know. I don't really give a shit that Christians are converting Muslims. Doesn't break my heart. It just doesn't.
One less suicide bomber.
It's just whatever, man. Like, yeah, I don't care. They're both stupid.
It's a lost opportunity. It's a lost opportunity. We're having people adding to a faulty epistemology. They're going to now teach their kids to believe in superstition and supernaturalism. It's just like you said, Dave, we don't know that the atheists are not, if they're not doing something to combat this, but the fact that these Christians have first access to these immigrants, it's a lost opportunity for our secular community, I think.
I see it as a step in the right direction, though, because it's showing that they can change their mind, right? So if you can change their mind on that, you may be able to move forward and change. And let's be realistic. Are the numbers really that much? Because there's millions of them that went to Europe. Is it that many converting? Like, do we have numbers on the exact amount, or?
In this article, it showed that this particular area in Berlin had about 1,200.
Okay, so they're
converted within 3 years.
Millions. Like, I think,
regardless, even
Germany,
if it's millions,
I think Germany took in 250,000. So 1,200.
Regardless if it's millions, even though, like, we need, as secularists, we need to
I agree.
to those millions.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. And if I was in Europe, then it would be a different story. How about in Canada? Do you have
they
any
don't give
figures
us
on that?
refugees here. They
Yeah,
send
they didn't give you
U.S.
any
is just like, fuck off.
assholes. Well, we had to stop taking them, I guess, for a little bit because
the infrastructure wasn't really in place
and they ended up being in hotels for long periods of time.
To me, I don't know, Dave. It's just like, it's such a great opportunity to say, like, there's an alternate way of living. You don't have to believe in this shit.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with that. And I think that, humanists should be doing that. But I just like the fact that Christians are converting Muslims. I don't really, I don't feel bad for it at all because I've seen what the Muslims do to Christians in their countries, and the alternative is a lot worse, right?
I guess it also depends on what type of Christianity they're converting them to.
Yeah, what if they're all Unitarians?
This is Lutheran in this article in Germany. So, you know.
And Lutheran used to be batshit crazy back in the 1700s, but it's not anymore. Pretty Christian light.
It's almost like Catholicism in some respect.
Yeah, but even lighter though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand. I understand your point of view on this, David, and I do think that humanists should be, and they may be. Like we don't know for sure because media doesn't really like to.
Well, there are humanist groups out there that help with refugees in different countries.
Yeah.
They're out there. They exist.
Are they like I remember Ed and I in the pre-show we were talking, not the pre-show, but in the production we were talking about the evangelicalism of atheists, right? A lot of atheists might be, or secularists might be afraid they don't want to be labeled as an evangelical, someone who's preaching and trying to convert and exploit.
Yeah, but I think at that point you know it's an individual basis thing. So you're not just going to go up to like 100 refugees and be trying to convert them, but you can help them, bring them clothes, food, whatever, have conversations with them, and then if you feel like one or two are open to discussion, you can start to have the secularist humanist discussion with them. But I don't feel that, I shouldn't say atheism, I don't feel that atheists in the same way as Christians would, we don't push our shit on people as much. Like,
no, but I think what we should be doing is supporting programs like Maison de Frontier, Doctors Without Borders, you know, the Red Cross, those people that actually do good humanitarian work with no conversion tactics whatsoever. They just do it for the sake of the human being that they're working with. I think
the people's actions speak louder than all the words. I mean, if the people out there doing all the work without any stipulations, you know, that seems more humane than somebody saying, well, we'll help you, but.
And at the same time, maybe they saw what happened at first when, you know, because Germany welcomed all those people with open arms and then a bunch of bullshit happened. It's not happening the same now. I think people are starting to adjust, but a bunch of bullshit did happen when they first welcomed all those people in. So I don't really know. It would be different if I lived there and I could witness what was going on. But again, I just don't feel bad about Christians converting Muslims. I just don't. One is like, and I know people are going to get mad and be like, oh, fucking Christianity, but one is progressed more than the other. It just has. And Christianity really fucking sucks, and it sucks in a lot of ways, and it oppresses gays, and it oppresses transgender, and it's very misogynistic, but it's not as bad as Islam. It just isn't. And the argument is made that it is, but it isn't. So
we've domesticated.
Not at least in the West, it isn't.
No.
So I don't feel bad about it.
But I agree, David. We've domesticated it to a point where we can have open discussions about religion without being killed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, just one last tag point is, I'm just wondering if there's a state interest in promoting, secularism. So it's not even about atheists necessarily getting in there, like individual volunteers, but.
Do you have a country list, David?
Netherlands, Germany.
Okay. So Germany has blasphemy laws and it's pretty, you know, the people are secular, the laws are pretty religious, and Holland is pretty secular all around.
Sounds like, to me, I don't know, I think an argument can be formed for a legitimate government interest for not necessarily pushing non-belief, but pushing education and stressing that you're not tied to your beliefs that you came from in your home country. There is an alternative. That's all
Oh, but I don't want to use the term, but is that kind of a slippery slope situation, David?
Explain the slippery slope.
Is it pushing secularism? Maybe explain a little better for me.
Oh, so yeah, there's nothing wrong with pushing secularism, separation of church and state. What's wrong with that?
No, but I mean, sorry, I should rephrase that. So you think the government should be telling people that they don't have to believe in the things they believed in before they came?
Yeah, why not? No, we're not going to force you to believe, but we're saying like if you don't have to wear
But they already do that. They already do that in the law.
Yeah, I know.
In the United States, it's like Jesus.
In the laws itself, I don't think the government should be actively saying that. The laws themselves take care of that.
Okay.
Like I find it kind of, I don't know. it'd be like saying, you don't have to, so just say your country has, like Britain, take Britain, for instance, who has a Church of England, and they're saying, you don't have to believe in the stuff you believed in before you came here. We have the Church of England.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. So in the context of secularism, to promote the separation, to promote
church.
Education, I would just say, that, you don't have to believe any of the superstition stuff. We'll just give you a good education, train you in the sciences, train you in secular ethics and humanism. I think there's a valid argument.
Yeah, I think the proper way to do it, David, and you could be right, but I think the proper way to do it is to tell people that they're free to believe however they want to believe, but you're not free to push your beliefs on other people. We have customs and laws in this country that you don't try to enforce or push your beliefs or your customs from the country that you came from onto other people. And that's what I think government should be saying to people.
Hi, I'm Ron Reagan, an unabashed atheist, and I'm alarmed by the intrusions of religion into our secular government. That's why I'm asking you to support the Freedom from Religion Foundation, the nation's largest and most effective association of atheists and agnostics, working to keep state and church separate, just like our founding fathers intended. Please support the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Ron Reagan, lifelong atheist, not afraid of burning in hell.
It's a deliberately provocative title, isn't it? You're attempting to take a man who is famous throughout the world for his robust approach to atheism and his championing of it, and you're possibly attempting to flog a few books off the back of it.
That's just simply not true, James, and it's clear from your question that you haven't read the book. The book is a story about friendship. It's a story about friendship between two men of very different worldviews. Here I am, an evangelical Christian, and Christopher Hitchens, a Molotov cocktail-tossing atheist on stage, and yet the two of us could enjoy a very warm friendship that culminated in 2 lengthy road trips, one from his home in D.C. to mine in Birmingham, Alabama, and the other through Yellowstone National Park, where we studied the Gospel of John together.
You read a book together. His friends say you hardly knew him. You bring his atheism into question. You posit the notion of contemplating Christianity, and your evidence is the number of hours you spent together in a car.
No, that's not the evidence, James. The evidence is a great deal more than that, and rather what I say in the book is that Christopher was contemplating making a number of, if I may put it this way, edits to his life late in his life. Exactly what he would convert to isn't clear. Christopher spoke of Protestant atheism, which was something that he found attractive. Would he have converted to a deism? What exactly to Judaism? He was deeply affected by the discovery late in life that he was Jewish on his mother's side. I mean, it's not very clear exactly what kind of change Christopher would make, but after 2001, Christopher made a very serious a defection from the left politically, and I'm simply suggesting in this book that this is a man who is he was a man of a great deal more complex than you would suggest.
Of course. How long before his death did you last see him?
I saw him 14 months before his death.
Okay. And we're joined now by Lawrence Krauss, an atheist himself and a close friend of Christopher Hitchens. He refused to discuss directly with Larry Taunton the contents of this book. So I'll begin by asking you, Lawrence, if I may, why your feelings run so high on this issue and whether you have been mollified in any way by what you just heard.
Oh, absolutely not. I was impressed with your interview, but no, this is a man who was clearly trying to use Christopher Hitchens to take a relatively unknown individual and make money off Christopher's name, and I wasn't going to help participate in that by having a conversation with someone I clearly didn't think was worthy of having a conversation with.
Is it not possible that he was sort of auditing some of his personal beliefs in the last couple of years of his life?
Well, first thing, let's talk about the friendship thing, because I just had a conversation with Carol, Christopher's widow, about this once again, and she confirmed once again. So the time they spent together, Christopher was paid to spend time with him. I have to say that none of us friends that I know of paid Christopher to spend time with him. I think that's the difference between a real friend and a paid associate. Christopher was being paid to go have a debate with this gentleman. Now, the other thing is that Christopher was incredibly, in spite of the fact that he was seen as a bulldog on stage, in private he was incredibly civil with individuals and could have wonderful, polite conversations with people he desperately disagreed with. I know Anton Scalia, Justice Scalia, used to be a visitor at Christopher's house. So the fact that this person is confusing civility with intellectual sympathy means he just didn't know Christopher at all.
May I ask what his widow thinks about the book?
She's disgusted by it and thinks it's exactly what you said it was, an opportunity for someone to try and ride the coattails of Christopher's name.
I do resent, always have resented, the idea that it should be in some way be assumed that now that you may be terrified, say, or miserable, or as it might be depressed, surely now would be a perfect time for you to abandon the principles of a lifetime. I've always thought this to be rather a repulsive mode of approach. And there's a disgusting history of people either attempting to inflict deathbed conversions on people like Thomas Paine in their extremity, or making up lies about it afterwards, as they did about Charles Darwin and many others. That I find wholly contemptible. But it's only vestigially implied in my case. Surely I ought to think more about these things now than I would anyway. No, not at all. I already thought about them a great deal. Thanks all the same.
Speaking for the religious side of the argument, I also think it would be quite grotesque to imagine that someone would have to get cancer to see the merits of religion. It's an absurd idea. I don't know why anyone imagines that it should be so.
The reason why we played these two clips, I know we spoke before about Larry Taunton and his stupid book, which is total BS. But the rationale, is because there was a new article that came out in the Times newspaper by Melanie Phillips saying that Christopher Hitchens was leaning towards Christianity towards the end of his life. And she uses this particular book to back up her case, and which really set, for lack of a better term, the devil in me. It really pissed me off because, as people probably know, I've read everything of Hitchens. I have watched hundreds of hours of Hitchens videos where he doesn't speak of his own faith because he didn't have anything. The second clip that we played for you is Hitch and his brother Peter talking to the Pew panels. The question was posed to Christopher, now that you have cancer, are you thinking more about the Creator, or are you thinking about anything spiritual at this point? You heard his response. Basically, this is something he's lived a lifetime. He's made up his mind. He's gone through it. I want to get some of my fellow panelists here to talk a bit about those two clips, and then I want to talk a little bit about the article.
Okay. Well, I was listening to the first one. I actually got kind of angry about it because the guy is just talking out his ass. Christopher Hitchens was debating against theists right up until the very end, pretty much. So, I mean, he had debates within that 14-month period that guy said that he had last spoken to Hitch. He had a debate after that.
He had many
debates, yeah.
Yeah, he had Tony Blair. He debated Tony Blair and a number of others. What really pissed me off about this guy is he talks about Hitch and him reading the book of John in the Bible. And as anybody knows, Hitch knew the Bible inside out, backwards. This was nothing unusual. Hitch read the Bible probably just as much as he read any other book. And it was because he can show you exactly why the book was wrong. There's something evil about it. And I have no doubt that they had a discussion about the book of John. I have no doubt that he was in the car with this dude. The problem I have is, as Lawrence Krauss puts it, using sympathy, his sympathy towards this individual, he was best buddies, and Hitch was converting. I just don't see that. It's a total non sequitur to me.
Yeah, and I also think him saying, "Oh, I don't necessarily think it's Christianity," yet he's saying that Hitch was studying the Bible is just kind of a cop out when he knows that he's kind of caught in a hard place.
Well, in his book, and I've read a few pages of it before I got sick, but one of the quotes I really hated was the fact that he said he was leaning towards Christianity towards his end. And that's a total bullshit. Of all the religions that Christopher Hitchens really detested, he hated the fact of vicarious redemption. He hated the idea of a dictator in the sky. That whole concept totally exculpates the idea that Hitch would be interested in any religion, any monotheism.
Yeah, the guy's a fucking cunt.
But I thought that whole concept was over until I read this article.
I think when you have a lot of atheists debating, first of all, of course they're going to read the Bible and they're going to be open-minded because, if you want to find the truth, you're going to read things, you're going to look at the evidence, you're going to consider things, discount things for the interviewer or this author to misinterpret. An open-minded person who wants to consider the evidence as somehow leaning towards towards Christianity, I think it's not fair. It's an unjust thing to assume, especially for someone who has passed away and can't defend himself. It's very slimy to suggest things like that of someone who can't defend themselves. And this deathbed conversion of atheist thing is so cliche. Like Dawkins talked about it in his book, putting a tape recorder on his deathbed and ensuring that his name won't be besmirched posthumously. It's just such a slimy thing.
I thought a great deal about this stuff. I really didn't think people would do it with Hitch, but I thought they would do it with Dawkins. I almost think that they're still going to do it, even if he records it. They're still going to say Dawkins recanted on his deathbed. But I think I didn't think that they had a leg in with Hitch, and this guy comes out of the blue, 5 years after his death, and with this piece of garbage. It really infuriated me. But what really I moved past that book because I tried to not to give it the credit, and then into my Twitter feed I get this article from Melanie Phillips. The headline reads, "Holy War over Gospel according to Hitchens. The polemical atheist Christopher Hitchens showed spiritual leanings towards the end of his life," and in which she uses one source, and that is Larry Taunton. And for those of you out there thinking, well, why do you care? Why do I care? And that's something that has been on my mind for a number of days. Why do I care? I care very simply because it's not true. I would rather have a hurtful truth than a comforting lie. And this is what I think is a comforting lie to Christians. Christians want to negate every bit of work that Christopher has ever done. And I think they're trying to use this conversion, quote unquote, as a tactic to throw it out so atheists can't use it in a debate even. They say that there's no true atheists in foxholes,
It's really funny. I think arguments against theism still won't change. It's tragic that they're trying to besmirch a person, after his death. There is no reason to believe that Christopher Hitchens would go from one method of knowing to a faultier method of knowing. Like he's just, if you read his stuff, it's just so difficult to believe that people would buy this book and buy what this writer is saying just after what he said, how he's argued his points.
Yeah, the only people that are going to believe it are the Christians.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, there are Christians that have come out and said this guy's full of crap, which I think is great. What kind of miscarriage of justice is this to Christopher's family? I mean, how upsetting must it be to Carol Blue, who was his widow, having to field questions about her deceased husband about his conversion that never took place.
Yeah, it's a slimy thing to do, especially after somebody's dead and they can't defend themselves. And it's so obviously wrong, but then there's the people that just don't really care. They just are fine with being stupid.
I talk a lot about Hitch, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Hitch was the first atheist that really shook my faith in everything. I was on the internet just watching YouTube videos, and all of a sudden I get this, those ones, you may like this video, and so I clicked on it, and it happened to be Hitchens debate versus Alistair McGraw, I think his name is, and it just shook everything I knew to the core, and I think that was the impetus for me becoming an atheist today. And I think that has a special place within me that I want to defend that person to the end.
So Hitch was in his 60s, right?
62, yeah.
62. Would you consider out of 62 years taking 2 drives with somebody a great friend in your life? No, and to be paid.
Well, trust me. I mean, I've read enough of Hitchens and watched enough videos. I had to go searching for this dude. I didn't have any, he is not Martin Amis, which was Hitch's best friend. It wasn't Salman Rushdie who's saying this. It's not Lawrence Krauss. It's not anybody that I could recognize. The only time I've heard this guy's name mentioned was when they were talking about the Hitchens Day of Prayer. Remember that, when people started praying for Hitch when he was ill with cancer?
Yes.
He was making a snarky comment about that and saying that the only one that's mentioning this is Christopher Hitchens, which makes me laugh. And that was in 2010. And that's the only time I've heard of this individual.
And that guy just said, didn't I hear correctly in the audio, he was saying that after 2001, Hitch was?
Yeah, it's like he said that after 2001, he made this major break with the left.
Which isn't true at all.
No, Hitch made
What he was talking about was his views on the Iraq War.
Right.
The one optimistic thing I see about the story is this isn't some, 19th century guy who's dead and whose name is being, blemished posthumously. Do you think a typical right-winger is going to be reading a book about Christopher Hitchens or going onto YouTube and finding all these amazing debate? Like his presence on YouTube, if you want to find out what Christopher Hitchens has to say about religion, there's so many videos, so many articles online. We're living in an age where it's going to be increasingly difficult to posthumously besmirch someone's reputation and say that he had a deathbed conversion when you see how he argued. Even if he did, just say that even if he did do this, which he didn't, but you can see the arguments as he presents themselves, and they're convincing and they're powerful arguments, and those arguments so far have stood the test of time.
You're exactly right.
Yeah, I agree with what David's saying. You can't stop the internet.
Yeah, it's where religion goes to die.
I know we've discussed this already, but it is a real low life move, and it's purely about money. The guy has no name, no money, so he's just piggybacking off of Hitch and trying to earn himself some fame and some cash. He can go fuck himself. Can eat a big fat atheist dick.
But you wouldn't believe how many people I've had to fucking put straight over this crap on Twitter and on Facebook.
No, I really would believe it.
It's mind-numbingly stupid, that I have to defend. And I write better than I speak, so I stutter very on audio. But when I try to defend him, I use Christopher's own words. I can play audio clip after audio clip after audio clip of Christopher saying, if you get this, that I converted to Christianity on my deathbed, it's bullshit. Don't believe it. Don't credit it.
I just hope that people don't think that if there's a possibility that he did, that means that Christianity is true. Because that's a stupid argument. Right?
But that's what they're going to do. One guy said, see, even Christopher Hitchens, and this was on Twitter, Christopher Hitchens found the truth of Christianity on his deathbed.
Well, of course they're going to say that, Edward. Of course they are.
Sounds awful, doesn't it?
It pisses me off to no end.
The arguments stand as the arguments stand. I don't think deathbed conversion or not, there's still the arguments that have been put forth.
Let me say this. Even if he did, it holds no bearing on, and should hold no bearing on anybody else's beliefs.
No, exactly. And I agree. And I just think it's a cheap fucking move to do to try to flog a few books.
If you become a famous atheist, Edward, people are gonna do that to you too. It's just been, but hopefully, if you have enough YouTube videos and books out there, that it's going to be so much more difficult for people to go ahead and do that.
Edward is famous, Newfoundland famous, and I think flog means something different in Newfoundland than it does in Ottawa and Florida.
What does Newfie flog mean?
May sell.
Sell.
Yeah.
And to me, it means beat that ass.
That's exactly what it means.
But one good thing that came out of it, out of this whole situation, is I got to vent on Twitter and get banned. I felt like a rebel for the first time.
Blocked. You got blocked.
Blocked. You weren't banned. You were blocked.
Oh, okay. Blocked. And
you're still not a rebel. Sorry.
Okay.
Hey, give him his moment. Come on.
Okay.
Well, it's about people. Like, the larger issue, Ed, is people, like, you can't really approach people and disagree with them. No one wants to have a conversation. They just want to block you.
Yeah, that's what pissed me off, is that this lady was supposed to be a journalist, and she uses one source, and then anybody that disagreed with her, and I didn't say anything rude or nasty to this lady, but she banned 16 of us for defending using Hitchens' own words, and pointing out the fact that she used one source and no other. She didn't contact the family or friends of this person. You know, it doesn't make any sense. How can you be a credible journalist and do that?
It occurs to me as you're both talking that both of you have faced serious illness in your lives, and I'm wondering if that at all has shaped your view of the afterlife. Christopher?
I would say it fractionally increases my contempt for the false consolation element of religion and my dislike for the dictatorial and totalitarian part of it. But I presume what I say by the first is self-evident. What I mean by the second is it's considered perfectly normal in this society to approach dying people who you don't know, but who are unbelievers, and say, now are you going to change your mind? In fact, it's considered almost a polite question. And as you know, there's a long history of fraud about this. People claim that Darwin had a deathbed recantation. They'd made up lies about Thomas Paine. It goes on all the time. It's a very nasty little history, but there's also a horrible undertone of blackmail to it. People write and say, look, you've got about one chance left now. Aren't you going to take it? I'm writing to you as a friend. They've even tried it on me when I've been very ill and I haven't had quite the vinegar I'd like to have had in a hospital bed. I don't mind, I can take it. But I think there are a lot of people older than myself, iller than myself, perhaps at the risk of seeming conceited, less educated than myself, to whom that's a horrible experience. It's very depressing and alarming to be spoken to in that way. I mean, if Sam and I were to form a core of people to go around religious hospitals, which is what happens in reverse, and say to people who are lying in pain, say, did you say you were Catholic? Yes. Well, look, you may only have a few days left, but you don't have to live them as a serf, you know. Just recognize that was all bullshit, that the priests have been cheating you. And I guarantee you'll feel better. I don't think that would be very ethical.
Okay, but
I think it would be something of a breach of taste. But if it's in the name of if it's in the name of God, it has a social license. Well, fuck that, is what I say. and will say, if it's my last breath, thank you.
This was the Wayward Atheist Podcast. You can email us at waywardatheistpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at waywardatheists and on facebook.com/waywardatheists. If you enjoy our content, feel free to support us at patreon.com/waywardatheists.